All right, Joe, we are live. And I just want to be very serious here for a minute. Are you serious, Joe?
Absolutely serious.
Okay. No laughing.
No.
Absolutely no laughing on this stream.
None.
We're going to be like that all for the next hour or so. So, hey, everyone. Welcome to Pontificators. We are trying different times, different days. And so this is our new day. This is Thursday. We may try Wednesday next week. I think Chester wants Wednesday of next week. So we're going to try that as well. So we're just trying to give you guys entertainment that does not conflict with everybody else's entertainment. So I hope that's okay with everybody. And everybody in the stream, I want to encourage you as well. No matter what is said, even if you think it's funny, do not smile. Do not even crack a little this. Don't do that. Nothing, because this is apparently it is the evil thing to do if you find something funny and you laugh. So I think most of you know what we're referring to. What did this went down last Friday? Was that the Tess Fowler thing, Joe?
I think it would. Yeah, I think it was Friday, because the Bleeding Fool article number 2 in the series on the Whisper Network dropped on Tuesday or Wednesday.
And then we did our show. It was either that Tuesday or Wednesday, right?
Yeah, I think it was Wednesday, because Chester was able to make it. So I think it was Wednesday.
You're right. It was Wednesday. Yeah. Yeah. And he came in. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning, his time. So if you don't know, Chester Busby III is in Japan. And we are waiting for Todd Mulrooney. He said he'd come. He'd be ready, willing, and ready for this. Apparently, he lied. And then Bob, Comic Bob, said he might be in today, but we have Joe Thunderbuns to fill everybody's space and to fill in the gap. So what's all the garb? What's this for?
Oh, well, last week on the show, I was informed by someone in the chat that I was not pretentious enough in my pontificating to qualify as a pontificator. So I decided to up my game.
Well, it's working.
Level up, if you will.
Yeah, it's working. It's a good look for you, man.
Thank you.
I like the glasses, and you know what? For some reason, it almost looks like you had the beard planned with the beret and the glasses, because the three working together. Yeah. Is that an ascot, or is that just kind of a T-shirt that you wrapped around?
Oh, this is a cravat, my good man. Thank you for noticing.
Oh, a cravat. Oh,
yes.
Okay. What's the difference between a cravat and an ascot?
Well, an ascot has more of a scarf-like appearance, and a cravat is more of a necktie.
Okay. So one's closer to the neck and chest, and the other one's kind of more showy, blousy. Yeah, I got
Correct.
it. I got it. Very. What was that guy? Three's Company. The that landlord's character's name.
Mr. Furley.
Mr. Furley. Thank you. Yeah, he had a ascot, I believe. Yeah. Oh, I was smiling.
Oh.
Can't do that. Yes. No. So we are waiting for Todd. We may get Bob in here, hopefully, and if not, we will carry on. We will carry on. It'll be sad without them, but we will carry on. So, what happened? Just to give you a little backstory why we're not smiling is apparently I did a live broadcast with EVS, Ethan Van Sciver, and there was some Tess Fowler mentions. And just for the record, Ethan did not wish cancer on her. That is a falsity. And so, hey, we got Todd. What's up, Todd? Ooh, look at that. Yes. This got sexy. You there, Todd? Come in, Todd. Do you read?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
We can hear you now.
We can see you too.
What's going on, guys?
Yeah, people got a little extra on that one. Yeah.
A little X-rated.
Yeah, the well, I don't know about X-rated. Let's not get crazy here. This is a no smiling and laughing stream, so I'm going to do my best not to smile and laugh, because apparently if you laugh at a joke, then you get crucified on Twitter. So that's kind of, we're just going to go into this a little bit, just kind of get into some smaller, just for a little bit, just a little length of time. And look at the Todd face. Look at the Todd face. It's right there. Yeah.
I think I know where you're going with this.
I think you know. Yes. So, so apparently, Tess Fowler decided, based on that clip from that episode that we did, and do you guys have, like, that was weeks ago, right? That show. It wasn't even recent.
Yeah, it was not recent.
Yeah.
So after we did our pontificators, blowing the whistle, focusing on the Whisper Network Part 2, I do believe it was a day or two that Tess Fowler put up a tweet, and she said some not so nice things about me. And we have, was it yesterday that the bleeding? No, it was Bounding into Comics article came out. So we were thinking of going over that, and then we'll go over some of the Valiant stuff.
How about, have you guys even read the ICV2 article?
ICV2, no.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Really like a state of the industry health-wise article.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Really good article.
More serious business for this serious live stream.
All right. Yeah, very serious. Well, let's just go over this article real quick. Let's kind of peruse it, not get into too much detail, and then we'll get into the ICV and then the Valiant stuff.
Okay.
And see what happens. So let's screen share. Give these people their money's worth. So I do like the art that they chose for the article, for the Bleeding into Comics article. So this was some killer RT Bear vintage early 90s ink work over Jim Lee. Yeah. All right. So I like that since Patton Oswalt is probably the biggest name that decided to throw me under the bus, he gets first billing. So it says, former X-Men artist RT Bear comes under siege from Patton Oswalt, Fabian Nicieza, Dan Panosian, and others. So in a nutshell, like I said, we did an episode on EVS's stream, and there were some things said that I don't know. Do you remember? Because I think Joe, you have some of the. Who was it? Was it Blue Samurai sent us a transcript of actually what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it got into detail, and then EVS said, I think he just mentioned that because Tess Fowler announced that she had cancer, so he was going over that as kind of a news. And then he kind of said some stuff that he, doesn't want any ill will, or anything bad to happen to her, even though that she was pretty horrible to him. And so then I do believe that, I don't know the exact order, but I think that Cecil then made a joke about, was it Mags Basaggio? Yeah. And then he said something about that she, what is it? Cecil then cracks an edgy cancer joke. I don't know what kind of cancer she has. I think I got her confused with Mags. I think she had ovarian. So the joke is that Mags had or has ovarian cancer. Mags is not quite a full woman, so she couldn't really have ovarian cancer. So this is where I dropped the snicker, was in this area. It wasn't when Ethan was talking about Tess Fowler. So I just want to be clear there. Do you have anything to add there, Joe?
Well, there's a request from Mighty Joe in the chat to play the video. I don't
have the video. Do you have the video?
Is it embedded in the article?
Is it in here? But is it the real video, or is it the Tess Fowler video?
Well, there you go. Just the clip. Yeah, that's the clip in question.
But wasn't this one supposedly edited?
Can you bring the volume up?
Tess Fowler tweets out that she thinks this is it. She's never had the ability to work anything from her before. Me neither, Tess. Fuck you. You know, absolutely. What am I supposed to feel sorry for you? Fuck you.
So no smiling. See that?
You know, this is the thing. I don't wish cancer on anybody. But you did nothing but spend your time in this wonderful but frivolous business trying to hurt people, including me. You know, is that right, Cecil? Am I right to say that?
Oh yeah, no, they wanted to.
Okay, just for clarification, there's absolutely right. You guys didn't see me crack a smile, right?
None.
Okay, here we go.
Sure, you wanted to kill yourself and not be able to feed your family. I don't think she. I don't know what kind of cancer she has. I think I got her
See, I still didn't even like fully laugh there. Yeah, I just kind of shook my head and just kind of smirked, right?
Yep. No laughing. No joking.
Okay, let's back up here just for complete. I should go full screen with this. Okay. I'm sorry, I keep hitting that ding button. Let's go.
You're confused with Mags.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. Who knows?
3 people getting cancer.
It is sad. It is sad. Boo hoo hoo. You know, look.
Ethan's got fucking powers. Don't you know this? You fuck with them, and bad things can happen.
That is God. This is a weird thing. God will strike you down.
Okay, there's the first real smile, right there. That's
Once Ethan is making a silly, absurd joke, you callously, that had nothing to do with cancer and nothing to do with Tess Fowler specifically. Ethan is about to make a general statement, and then Cecil will follow it up with a general statement, and you callously smiled at Ethan's suggestion that he has the power to call down divine intervention and smite anyone who does him wrong.
right. So it's a
Todd, it's
other
very
stuff.
serious. Please.
Yes. Todd, stop laughing.
We need you to get right here. You better come correct, sir. This is a serious stream today.
Yes. Okay, so there you go. There's the smile. Okay, that wasn't even much. Oh, there it goes. All right, but that has nothing to do with Tess. It wasn't even in context to that. So pretty telling, I would say. Let me see. I got to get rid of this. There we go. So what do you guys think? Where are you at on this? Is this was that damning? Was I laughing at Tess Fowler's mention of cancer? What's the verdict?
No, not at all.
Yeah, complete fabrication.
It's like anytime she has, look, she's been brought up before, and I don't even see her, right? I don't even see what she does. I know she's a troublemaker, but it doesn't come through my feed. I've never blocked her. It's not important. You know what I mean? What book is she even on? Is she on a book?
I don't know. Yeah, I didn't even know about her really until recently. I mean, I've heard her name drop with like Trouble and Whisper Networks and stuff like that, but never anything where I dug any deeper. And then when I did try to dig deeper, once people were sending me the heads up that Tess had sent that tweet out, I couldn't even see the tweet because I was blocked. So I couldn't even see what she was hanging me out to dry with. So, and then is this true? I heard people say that the one that Tess put up was edited. Is that correct? Because I never saw it.
No, so what you played was the clip that she sent out. The problem is that the clip that she sent her tweet with shows that you are clearly not laughing at the idea of someone with cancer. You're not telling cancer jokes. She specifically links you to Ethan and Cecil, and talking about how you're smiling and laughing, when the clip shows very clearly you weren't smiling or laughing at any of that stuff. You were smiling and laughing at the absurd notion that Ethan can, call down power from on high and smite down people who do him dirty. And the thing that I kept asking people on Twitter was, did you even watch the clip? Because if you did, you would have seen that Tessa's claim about art is false. And then I broke down exactly why it was false. Nobody, by the way, responded to me and told me that they watched the clip.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bizarre. I don't think half those, the majority of the people did watch the clip. I was surprised that then she actually put that clip up so people could see for themselves and still chose to hang me out to dry. You know what I mean? Like it's so weird. Like you're saying this is not pink, right? While you're showing that it's pink. Mm-hmm. And so that's what she was doing. She was saying, look, Art laughed inappropriately or laughed at me having cancer. And then she actually put the proof up that doesn't verify her claims. And then people still jumped on the bandwagon and chose to throw me under the bus. So what do you think that is? I mean, why do you think people?
Because you were next on the list.
Yeah.
There's a list, and you were just next.
It was on. Sorry, Todd. Go ahead.
And that's what it comes down to. There's nowhere. Nobody's going to be able to touch certain people. They're just basically just call them untouchable. But who can we hurt? So there's a list of people who they think they can hurt. And what they don't understand is you're out there engaging your customer in a way that they don't get. They go and they put up a crowdfunder, they put up something with their name on it. It doesn't do well because they don't get it. They think my name is who I am. And what surprises me most of all the names, yours is 40 years in this industry almost. And you know what? You're a legend. So they just can't touch you because what you're doing is what they can't do. Engage their customer with a good quality product and with a friendship almost. Like people feel like, you know what? That's Uncle Art. We love him. We're going to buy his product. They don't get it. They don't understand it. That's why they're not doing it. They're going to have one failure after another because they think it's all about your name, and it's really not. It's about who you are and what you're doing, and you're providing hours of entertainment on your channel, and they won't do that because that's not how they ever work. They always thought, I get in, I get the job, I get a paycheck, I get a lot of money. There's no more money for you. The industry is in a dire straits right now. The money's not there. The books aren't there. It's shrinking. So they're going to go for the best of the best. And you know what, women and these people that work, because they're kind of talking about certain people. You're not the best of the best. You're gone because you're disposable. Not only have you not got in the boat and rowed for the company you work for, you certainly aren't going to get out here and row on a channel and row for CG or row for anything to help your book. You just think, because you're spoiled little brats, that you can just put a book up with your name on it and it's going to go somewhere, and it's not. So your industry shrunk so much. Only about 30% of the people in it are going to be still in it in a year.
Right. Yeah, that's the really sad thing about all this. And so since this is a Pontificator show, do you believe that not only was I on the list, but do you think that this has something to do with us doing the Whisper Network part 2?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, Marigo DePaolo in the chat said it. She said, Tetz is going after you because you dared call out the Whisper Network on your stream. She's trying to do to you what she allegedly did to the Rat Queens creators and others.
Yeah.
And so if you're not familiar with that story, Tess worked on Rat Queens, and the story from her collaborators on that project, as in several others on other projects she's worked on, is that she went out of her way to try to attack their reputations while trying to increase her own. And there's a very common thread running throughout the comic industry for many years with her, where she specifically tries to ingratiate herself into working with different people in the industry. And then after she gets on a project, starts causing trouble for people. And then when she sees that it's, again, allegedly causing problems for her, she allegedly starts going out of her way to make problems for those collaborators and try to make herself look good.
Yeah, one of the things I remember early on is that you learn you're probably not going to work again if you're difficult. So one of the things you learn pretty quickly in the industry, you know, when you're working on monthly books and you're working for the mainstreams, is to try to be as problem free. You know what I mean? Like, you don't bring a lot of issues to the table. You don't make it about you. You try to keep it professional. Like, when do you need it? You know, and then if they say they need it by a time that you don't think you could provide, you know, the goods, then you kind of negotiate a little bit, and then you come to some kind of middle ground. But it's mostly about that. And then what there used to be is we would try to have a lot of fun along the way, you know? So you try to become as functional as possible, so then you can put that on the back burner and then just have fun and smile as much as possible, because there's never been any money in this industry since I started. I was really, really lucky that there was a time, about a 10-year or so period in the industry, where there was a boom. And I was there, and I got to benefit from that. And I'm very, very blessed and very happy about that. But, you know, other than that, I would have still been in the game. You know what I mean? I would have eked out a living. I would have kept, you know, my head down and make the deadlines and be professional. But the upside is, you know, we'd always pinch ourselves like, this isn't a real job. You know what I mean? Like, we get to stay at home. We get to draw funny books. We get to crack each other up. You know, we get to talk about nonsense all day and get paid for it. You know what I mean? So we thought we were ahead of the game. But now it seems like, and I think it's kind of where Todd was going, where the industry is shrinking. So I think there's a lot of desperation going on here. And so what they're trying to do, instead of like go, I'm going to outcompete you, right? I'm going to do a better job than you. And that's the way we used to compete. You know, like, you're only as good as your last job. You try to do the best. And every month, man, you try to do better than you did the month before. Even though you might have less time, you still try to do more and more and more with whatever you have available to you. I just don't think that's the case anymore. I think that instead of that dig down to do better, they kind of start throwing, they start becoming problematic in the fact that they start trying to cancel the competition in an unfair way to try to level the playing field for them. And it might be, like you said, Todd, I don't know. I don't read their books, but, you know, maybe if they can knock down some of the bigger ones, because everybody on that list, I think in the last Pontificators, we showed that list. They're pretty high profile. So if you can start also knocking down some of the best in the industry, you're lowering the standards. You know what I mean? Because then the highest standard isn't up here anymore. Maybe it's a little bit, and I'm just speculating because like I said, I haven't read a lot of their books, but maybe they're trying to also just kind of lower the level so that they can kind of, I guess, compete more, you know, in a more, what they think is more of a level playing field. You know, I've never been like that, because I think if you have that kind of mindset, the people that suffer are the consumers, because you're not doing the best work and the industry isn't trying to get better and put out the best work that they can. You're kind of trying to artificially change the standards so you can do less and possibly, you know, get by, you know, by doing less. And so I've never really seen that in the industry prior to this happening. Yeah, I do agree. I think the pontificators kind of hit a sore spot, and like you said, Todd, maybe they were already gunning. I know that Dan Panosian was, and I know his group of people were. So when this happened, I wasn't totally blindsided, but I will have this to say. When it really does happen, like, in an abstract, like, it can happen, right? We talk about it. We talk about, the cancel culture, X, Y, Z. But when it happens to you in such a direct, personal way, it feels different. And I must admit, even against my own instinct, my own intellectual, like, thinking it through, I still did what I did, because I tried to pull back, because the standard rule is kind of don't engage, right? Don't engage, because they're not real. What is it? Somebody said they're like NPCs. I think that's one of the best definitions I've heard of, like, SJWs or extreme liberals, is that they don't really think. They just kind of act. They have their, like, orders, and they just kind of carry out their agendas. So if you throw anything in, like I tried to do, trying to be human, try to humanize the situation, try to say I would never do this, X, Y, Z, and no human, not once did anybody act really humane towards me. And then there was Dan that said, I'm sorry, but they were like, it's like the crocodile tears thing. It was like, it was very disingenuous. And then especially when he followed it up with his mother and his dad, you know what I mean? It felt like I got accused of virtue signaling there. That really felt like virtue signaling to me. And that's when I said, what I said. So hindsight's always 20/20. And I wish now that I wouldn't have engaged. But I said my piece, and, I'm going to move forward, and just like we did the other day, Joe, like Florida Man, that party. Holy shit, man. I had the time of my life, man. And we raised a bunch of, got a lot of backers. Go ahead. You're muted.
Almost $3,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, chat. I smiled. Please forgive me.
I did too. I'm sorry. Yeah, it was because I was happy about, like, actually, having a party. Yeah.
I was recalling the days when we were allowed to have fun. I apologize, Todd.
Yeah. No, it was a party in the truest sense of a party, man. We had Mike Barron in there. We had Chris Browley, Joe. It was a good time. And so you said we raised $3K in
28. Very close.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it deserves it. It's a great book. You guys, it's in demand right now. So go back and pick yourself up a Florida Man. But yeah, that's good times, and that's what this should be about. So I was real happy that you took me up on the offer, Joe, Todd, because it felt like it's what needed to happen. We just needed to start celebrating again and start going in a positive direction. And you guys, I was going to go into the whole Bounding into Comics article. I must say, I must back up for a minute. I thought it was very fair written. I talked to Joe a little bit. Did you get a chance to read it, Todd?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. What did you think? I thought personally it was kind of as fair as these things can be. I thought it was pretty fair.
Yeah, no, I did too. I thought it was fair. Yeah. And
I thought that the tug, I've never cheered out loud as much as I did when Tug threw that those tweets back at Patton Oswalt. Not that I want this thing to be tit for tat and that I want, a war or anything like that, but I did think it was very telling how a lot of these people work. It's kind of like the rules apply to everybody else, but they don't apply to them. And so when Tug put that up, I think there were 3 tweets that Patton made cancer jokes in. And then for basically, crucifying us for doing something similar, even though I don't think ours were as brutal as some of those ones that he said. And then there was the Mike McCone wishing dick cancer on Comicsgate. And then, most normal people would go, okay, where was the outrage? If you're fair, if your Whisper Network or your SJW or whatever they're calling their side is fair-minded, then how come they didn't go after Mike McCone? Because he said something that was way more direct and way more visceral and brutal than anything that was said in that entire live stream on EBS's YouTube show. So I think it's really, really bizarre how these things happen. And I do applaud the bounding into comics, because I think it was very, very fairly written. And then one of the things that struck me as like, maybe we're getting into more responsible journalism is where it wasn't written like from one side or the other. It really was trying to counterpoint, just show things, but it wasn't telling you how to think or like guiding you into a way to think. And then at the end, just to prove my point, he says, "What did you think?" And then he poses questions, but he doesn't give answers. So I thought that was it was one of the better articles that I've seen in a while. And anybody in the chat, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Let us know what you think as well, because I would appreciate any kind of insight. So I guess if you look how everything played out, I guess it played out as well as it could, and go ahead.
Yeah, no, the only thing I really have to add to what was written in the Bounding into Comics article is that if you look at the video clip, the worst that I found in there was Ethan and Cecil making rude comments about Tess Fowler, giving very specific reasons why they were making the rude comments. And then Cecil makes a joke at Mag's expense, but at no point did any of them say they were glad that Tess had cancer. At no point did they wish cancer upon Tess or Mags. In fact, quite the opposite. They both clearly stated they would not wish cancer on anybody, even people that they can't stand.
Right.
But of course, none of that gets mentioned when people are wanting to accuse you of being bad, terror bad.
Well, now that you mention it, why do you think, and Todd, please chime in, why do you think it became like such a witch hunt after that? Like the video, if that indeed was Tess Fowler, the video that Tess Fowler put up and then made the false claim, why do you think so many people chimed in based on a complete lie?
It was orchestrated to come after you. And when you hit them with like, hey, why do you think I would do this? I have a situation at home. You're effing crazy. They went, oh, fuck. Oh, Jesus. Maybe he was the wrong guy. Who picked him? Who's the dummy that picked him? This is basically what it came down to. Orchestrated nonsense to come after you, because what we've been talking about on the Pontificators for this, we've been doing this for almost a year now. The ups and the downs, we've talked about how to hit, try to save the industry, and then we go into doing some journalism and what's good and what's bad. You know what? They're watching this show, and you were next. And when you threw at them, hey guys, it wouldn't be me. I'm very sensitive to something like that because I got this situation going at home. They knew they effed up.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they tried to double down on like, my family member has cancer, or my, like all that stuff. And I thought that was...
I know you don't want to tell them what happened afterwards, but you were on that list, and you kind of know it because it was basically confirmed by one of your friends, or former friends, I should say. And I know you don't want to go into that, but that's dirty pool what they did. It was absolutely dirty pool to come after you.
And with the coordination that you mentioned, Art, that's just further confirmation, or further evidence, I should say. It's already been confirmed quite a few times, but further evidence that whisper networks in the mainstream industry are very real. And when we on the Pontificator show have talked about whisper networks, we're not talking about, like a DM group that people use because they're working together on a project and it's easy to communicate with. We're not talking about a DM group that people use to plan their weekly YouTube show. We're talking about secret Facebook groups and Slack channels. Slack is a software application that is used for project management and project collaboration. And so there's there's things like Slack or Facebook, and there are others where there are these whisper networks in the mainstream and in the indies. You can only find it, let alone see what's going on, if you're invited into it. And they use these groups to plan coordinated attacks against people like you, Art. They use them to plan coordinated defenses when one of their own gets called out. Like, for example, in the Bleeding Fool article number 2, when Stephanie Cook was revealed to have been not only accused of embezzling over $10,000 from writer Bill Willingham, who was her employer at the time, but he filed charges with law enforcement. She left the U.S., went back to her native Canada, and has stayed there ever since. Now, there's been some evidence that she has come back to the U.S. for conventions and whatnot, but she's never been back, that anyone knows, to Minnesota, which is the state where she was working when Bill Willingham allegedly caught her embezzling money from him.
Right.
Now, when you have a revelation like that, as detailed by Bleeding Fool, and people like you on your channel are covering it on the Pontificators, people like Ethan are covering it on his channel, people like Cecil are on his channel often, and then there's a video with you and Ethan and Cecil. Well, that's just a prime opportunity to try and take you all down. It doesn't matter that they have to lie about you in order to incriminate you. All they're going to do is stick that video up, write a little blurb on top of it, and send it out. And because it's Twitter, how many people are actually going to watch the video? In my experience in the last week, slim to none.
Yeah, so it was a calculated move. And so what you guys are saying, if I'm understanding this, and also you guys, anybody that's listening, these are just opinions. These are just opinions. Don't get crazy about this shit. We're just talking, people used to be able to share ideas before. So you're kind of saying that they already had their mind made up even before, like they were just looking for some kind of stupid reason for retribution because of the article, and us on the Pontificator show talking about it. So it didn't really matter what it was. And they probably knew that most people weren't going to really scrutinize the facts. They were just going to go based on the agenda that the Whisper Networks had set forth and the fact that not a lot of people were going to really watch the video. Yeah, including me, because I didn't have access to the video. And I think that even was the Fabian link, I don't think I could even access it through Fabian. So I didn't see what Tess had put up.
Yeah, Tess made sure that you were blocked so that you couldn't see it when she sent it out.
Yeah.
And so, when I looked into it and saw that I was blocked, then I decided to get around the block, get a hold of the clip, and then send it to you so that you could see what was being said about you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why you weren't, even when you went through Fabian's tweet, it's because Tess is the one who uploaded it and you were blocked by her.
Yeah, so I couldn't go to her. Yeah.
And me, never even have heard of her, except for when I watched that episode. I'm blocked.
Yeah.
For what? She made sure any one of the pontificators who could kind of answer for you or, kind of fight back for you, she made sure we were all blocked.
Yeah, silence you. Yeah. So it was a really bad weekend. I won't lie. I mean, it's one of those. I don't even have the words. Like I still don't have the words for like how it felt and what happened. You know, I'm still kind of searching for the word. It's kind of like you want to say betrayal, but it's beyond that. So I have gotten to the place where like the celebration, the Florida Man, you know, countdown and stuff like that, that's the right way to move forward. Is just to succeed and to do good and to keep making entertaining comic books for people. What were you gonna say, Todd?
I was going to say that if there was a real sincerity to any kind of a apology or, geez, you know, we're sorry, Art, you know, obviously I didn't look at the video. If there's any sincerity to that, I'm guessing a few of those people have your phone number. And if Fabian doesn't, he could have found it or found a way to get to it through other people. So if they really were sincere and went, oh my God, you know, wrong person, he obviously wouldn't do this, they would have called you and said, hey, I was reacting, really sorry, I didn't even really watch the video, just kind of, you know, Twitter, blah blah blah. Could have came up with a million things to go, sorry, Art, and you would have been like the nice guy that you are, look, I understand Twitter's this way and da da da, and you probably would have been able to forgive them. But no, don't apologize on social media in some backhanded way to say, like, you know, no offense, didn't mean anything by it. F you, Dan Ocean. F you.
And if there was a slim chance that they had acted decently and then made the mistake of doing what they did publicly, I sent a reply to Fabian and Dan and copied Art and said, I hope that for the sake of friendship and professional courtesy, that you at least had the decency to reach out to Art privately before you publicly tried to shame him for something he did not do or falsely accused of. I forget the exact wording, but I never saw a reply to that.
Yeah, it really is, as hard as it is to comprehend. It was all by design. They were never going to try to be fair about it or to apologize for any of it. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. It's pretty crazy, this cancel culture, this culture war over a progressive, conservative, you know, president, or just over a shrinking industry. You guys really, this is what I want everybody to take from it. Let's just make good comic books. Let's entertain people. Let's have fun. If you have fun, you make good comic books, people will come. People will be entertained, and they're going to want to be around you. If you start like whisper networks and you start trying to cancel people and you're just angry and you're mean all the time, I don't think people are going to respond to that. I think people want to be entertained. They want escapist entertainment, and that's what we should. That's the only thing that we should be focusing on, personally. Because I don't tell anybody how to vote. I don't tell anybody how they should think or how they should feel, because I think those people are douchebags. Quite frankly, I don't like when people do that to me, and I don't do it to other people. So I don't tell people how to think or how to feel or how to act. But there is a group of people that do that. And if you don't obey, then they will cancel you and they will hurt you. I always thought, like, if the truth isn't enough, then you deserve to lose. Like, if the truth doesn't stand up, if you can't argue the truth and win in a debate or whatever it is, then it shouldn't exist. It shouldn't be there. So they've kind of learned a way to argue in a way that shuts you down. They call you names, they label you, and then there's no rebuttal to it. And furthermore, they don't really even want your input. They don't want a rebuttal, and they don't want to be fair. They really do just want to destroy you and cancel you. And it still boggles my mind. I'll probably wrestle with this for the rest of my life. I've never seen anything like this, where you could actually see things in that light. There are a group of people, and it's not, I mean, comics is a microcosm of what's really happening globally, but you see it, and it's so mind-boggling to me that there are that many people that are frightened and scared and acting out in very hurtful ways to get short-term gain. And just as far as comic books, I think that's been one of the fundamental problems with comic books, is that it's always been very short-sighted, that it doesn't really project far enough in the future. So we're always taking care of this little financial fire that happens here, and here, and nobody really has a clear vision on how to move forward or what is needed, or at least nobody that seems to say anything or do anything. I know there are a lot of answers, and on Pontificators, we do talk about ways that they could do things or the industry can move forward, but it doesn't seem, nobody seems to want to listen. So do you guys want to, like, I wanted to say this real quick. Candace brought this up. Yeah. They did go after my daughter, and it wasn't very cool. So if you guys wanted, if anybody's listening that is part of the Whisper Networks or part of that group, you know that you're a bad person when you start going after somebody's family member. So that's all I'm saying. And please stop it. She didn't do anything. Whatever you think of me, that's fine. But she didn't do anything. So Amanda doesn't deserve any of this stuff. So if you guys could please leave her alone, that would, I would greatly appreciate that. So do you want to go in the ICV, or do you want to go into the Valiant article first?
What do you think, Todd? Are you feeling frisky?
Go into the Valiant one first. We'll save the best for last.
Ooh, yes. I like the way you think. All right, so I need to screen share then. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. All right, so this is another Bounding into Comics article. So can you see this, Joe, or do you have it up on your screen?
I see it.
Okay, you wanna fill us in?
Yeah, let me bring it up here. Well, I'll just kind of give a brief summary, and then you can scroll as you like. So essentially, for everyone in the chat, Valiant Comics closed down their New York City office. I was shocked because I had no idea they had a New York City office. I did not believe that they were doing well enough financially to afford such a location.
I wonder if it's the original Valiant office, which I believe it is. So this probably that headquarters was, in the Valiant days when they had Jim Shooter there and Joe Quesada. So I bet you that it's kind of a leftover from that.
Okay. Yeah, so the long and short of it is that Valiant is in a lot of trouble financially. In the article, it discusses how they lost almost half of their revenue from last year. And with the pandemic and so many people working remotely, I think somebody in accounting said, why exactly are we paying for this office space in New York City when so many people are working from home? And it could be that they had shuttered their office temporarily to see if they could make things work without it, and then decided that they could. There's not a ton of information in the article. There's some speculation on from John Delarose, who was quoted in the article.
Really?
Yeah. He didn't really say anything that hasn't already been discussed publicly. For example, he thought that Valiant was doing well under the previous leadership when Dinesh Shamdasani was running things. And then Valiant was sold to a Chinese company. A new executive staff was installed, and things were going downhill pretty quickly after that happened, and they continue to go downhill to this day. So, Delarose gives his 2 cents on how Valiant used to be good and now they're not. He mentions their loss of revenue from last year to this year, and that's about it. The big news really was that they shuttered their New York City office, and they claim that their business is running at I believe they said they're operating at 100%. That could be
Well,
interpreted.
do they talk about where they're moving the offices to? And also, why do you think John De La Rose was asked here?
I don't know why he was asked his opinion.
That's bizarre. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
never worked for them, right?
Not that I'm aware of. If he has, it would be a surprise to me.
Yeah.
So my understanding is that Valiant no longer has a dedicated office space. My understanding is that they're 100% working remotely. Now, whether they decide in the future to set up some type of office co-working space, I don't know. That could be a possibility. It's popular with some companies.
It seems like anybody that lived in that New York area, their jobs possibly might be on the line. So if you don't have to stay, local to work there, they can actually go globally with their workforce.
Yeah, they certainly could.
So that must be once again just some scary times for anybody who works at Valiant. So Heather Antos is the comics senior editor. Okay, I've heard that name before.
Yeah.
Is there any speculation on why they think America, Heather? Is there any speculation why that they do need to downsize? Do they say the pandemic? Do they say just the nature of comics?
Well, so I don't know if Valiant has released an official statement. I didn't look into it that far. Frankly, I didn't care. But the facts is that when you look at their sales numbers, they're down across the board, both in revenues and in issues sold. That's undeniable. And then, as far as when they say their business is running at 100%, I don't know if that means that they haven't laid anyone off, or if it means that they haven't canceled any titles this year. I didn't look into it.
Yeah. John De La Rose says 48% down. Copy ship decreased by nearly 40%. That is quite a hit. What do you think of Valiant Comics shuttering their headquarters, New York? Do you think they are just adapting to the new workplace standards in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic? Or do you think that this is a possible struggling of finances? I'm going to come back and I'm going to see what you and Todd think of that. Those are good questions.
They used to have what I thought were some of the top industry artists. I mean, Miko Soyen, Louis Sarosa. These guys do a thing that's like above the norm. It's like washes, and it's really beautiful work. And a few other guys. I mean, they had some of the top guys, and they paid some top rates. And these guys, none of these guys are fast workers, but and that's part of what their problem is. They've always had a launch that never even had like that monthly 1 through 10. They just haven't been able to do it, no matter what it is. They've Bloodshot Reborn, Bloodshot Redo, and it chugs along for 4 or 5 months at a monthly rate, and then it disappears. So you did all that hype only to get 3 or 4 issues out of it, and then what happened? Where'd it go? And then it changes artists, so they become sort of a mockery of themselves by getting top. Like they got Brett Booth to do, I think it was Bloodshot, and I think he did 4, 5, or 6 issues, but then the book didn't even come out after that. So whether it's just, I mean, the business model they have has never been a monthly schedule.
Well, the only reason I can think that they would do that, based on the old business model, is it didn't make sense financially. Because the only reason you discontinue a series like that is if it doesn't make sense financially, meaning they're losing money if they move forward. So that's the only thing that comes true to me or in this situation is that they're probably losing money, so it made more sense to cancel the line abruptly. But it doesn't speak very highly of their line if they cannot sustain, even a year's run on a series, because after a while, even though you might be able to justify it, we're going to lose money, whatever, but it's not fair for the consumer because the consumer, wants a conclusion to their story. So I assume the Brett Booth storyline, Todd, it didn't finish up, right? They just kind of left everybody hanging. You're muted, Todd.
Sorry, he was only in for a few issues and then he was out. So I don't even know where it's at because I haven't seen anyone do an issue after him. I saw one in the middle, like a fill-in guy. I believe it was Mark Lamming who came in and did one of the first 6 issues, and then he was gone. And I've seen Mark show some more work,
Right?
like inks and stuff, because he's in. You know what? I like Mark, right? He's a rower. He's rowing for his company. He's always showing bits and pieces of inks and stuff like that, engaging the consumer. But I don't even know if his issue is going to come out.
So do you think that maybe it was always planned as a 5 issue, but you just don't know, right? You don't know if it was planned as. Yeah.
What property have they had that even goes back to, like, other than, okay, maybe Bloodshot did, but there's a lot of properties there. You got the Exo Man of War,
Solar.
right, and a lot of stuff. Well, whatever had a regular schedule? Name one that ever had. Faith might have had a more regular schedule than anything, and he's trying not to laugh. But I it's just not a company that I understand or I get, because again, they had some, like, even Kofu, Carlos, I forget his 4 other names, but he goes by Kofu, and right now he's drawing like a Marvel book. He was on Valkyrie. Great artist. He does these things. They had all these guys that did things with tones. There was a layer upon a layer upon a layer, and it just looked like beautiful. It was very 3-dimensional. And all these guys are not working there anymore. So, it's a work for hire situation. There's no exclusives there. They got rid of all of that.
Well, I'm just thinking it's one thing to cancel a book because it doesn't make sense financially, but if it's like an ongoing and you only get 5 issues out of it and you do that repeatedly, you're not going to instill trust in the consumer because they're going to go, well, why should I do this? I'm never going to get the conclusion of the story. And that's why I think like this renumbering thing has to stop from most of these companies, because I do believe most people have figured it out that it's just kind of a cheap way to get the numbers up again with a number 1, 2, 3. The problem is if you do that too many times, the consumer becomes leery and they're like, you never follow through on the promise. Like you like the New 52, a lot of like these things that have been pitched. I know Marvel's done similar things where they just haven't carried the idea through. And then the consumer is kind of like, I just spent hundreds of dollars picking up all these books, and this is how you end the universe. This is how you end this storyline, or this is how you end this series, abruptly without a conclusion. I don't know of anybody that's going to dig that. Like, it's like going to the movie and not being able to see the ending of it. Nobody wants that. Didn't
the owner sell in the middle of the making of this movie? Wasn't it like, you know what? Hey, the movie's going to prop up this line. This is the best time for me to get out, because they're not on a new track. They're on the same track. They didn't all of a sudden develop a new model. This has kind of been their model for the last 5-6 years. So in the middle of making the movie, that gets green lit and it's going, and it's got a big star attached. He sells either right before or in the middle of it, and now, boom. That movie, unfortunately, that was right in the beginning of the pandemic. So it didn't get any kind of traction. Bloodshot's a fringe. not a bad character, by the way, but a fringe character. So it doesn't have that. This is a Marvel movie. I gotta see it. I think it was timed. What happened to it was bad timing, and forget. We'll see it when it comes someday. It'll be on TNT at some point. And
Right.
that's kind of the idea. And I feel I wanted to see it, but I wasn't gonna go out of my way to see it. I'm not gonna jump through hoops to see it or pay money that So I'll wait, and eventually it'll be on something I watch, whether it's Netflix.
Did the Blood Shot movie ever come out?
Yeah.
Oh. So it was like a couple weeks, and then the pandemic, right?
Right. It just happened. They happened right at the same time.
Wow. Yeah, that sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what the future. I don't want to see doom and gloom on anybody. But I do think the comics industry has to start thinking more long term, and somebody needs a strategy to keep moving in that direction and building. And I don't think the old guard are going to be the ones that are going to do it. We've talked about on the Pontificator show the Diamond distributors and kind of like what we think they're doing and how they're moving forward. And it seems like they're kind of okay with business as usual, and they just want to keep their little self-contained collectible universe, direct market universe going on. They don't really have too much interest in trying to build a new audience. I do believe decades ago when they got rid of the newsstand, that it was probably the beginning of the end, or the start of what we're reaping the rewards of now, which means not a lot of new people coming into the hobby. And because I think we did a little poll, right, Joe, on Pontificators, where we all had got our first comic in some indirect market, like a liquor store.
So yeah, some newsstand somewhere, like a liquor store, drugstore, gas station,
right?
Anywhere except a comic book store.
I talked to some friends over last weekend, comic book friends and stuff, and I asked them the same question. I asked these questions to everybody, and you know what? It doesn't vary. Like, everybody's story is the same. Everybody that got into the industry, past tense, got into it through the newsstand.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they said like, oh, well, you don't make a lot of money, XYZ, I think that it's still paramount to do something like that. So at least you have the potential to bring people into the comic shops even, so they, like, you have maybe 5 to 10 books that you do on the newsstand. And then, the rest of your line, goes on to, the direct market, the newsstand, the comic shop market. And, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that one of the arguments back in the 90s for publishers getting out of newsstand distribution was that the direct market comic book shops had boomed all throughout the 80s and into the early 90s. And around the mid 90s, before the industry had its collapse, there were some people who were saying, look, we have comics in all of these newsstand locations, but because of returnability, we only sell, or we only get a cut of sales on a percentage of all those. The rest are pulped. They're destroyed. Right. And they said, the comic book shops are booming and have been for so many years. We could get rid of newsstand distribution. That would eliminate an expense for us, and we can rely on the fact that comic shops will continue to do great, and they'll continue to expand, and that's where we should be investing our money. So they canceled newsstand distribution, but what they neglected to understand back when the decision was made is that instead of counting on newsstand distribution, and in their accounting, instead of counting it as sales, what they should have done is treated it as a marketing expense.
It's what we said on the show. Yeah, definitely.
Because they didn't understand that all of those newsstand locations were funneling people in to comic book shops. Now, the casual reader may have only bought from newsstand, but the hardcore fans came from starting out as a casual fan. And so you've got to have those casual fans in big numbers to keep sending a steady stream of them into shops, turn them into hardcore fans. Then before you know it, you've got a whole foundation of hardcore fans with disposable income who were raised on comics.
Right.
And they're treating their comic habit as a necessary expense. Well, when you get rid of newsstand distribution, you shrink your accessibility to the product down to such a small number of outlets. You also shrink down the number of casual readers, which then shrinks down your number of hardcore readers. And you find yourself with a comic industry that is very contracted in 2020 compared to where it was in 1990.
And just to even back up to help with your point, just so kids even know what comic books are, like they, like Batman, Superman, whatever, but just to even understand what a comic is, like some kids never even had seen one before, you know what I mean? Because they just don't have access to it because, at least when we were kids, they made sure that they were accessible to the, like the spinner racks, and that kids could kind of find them in the store. So, if you're shopping with your parents, you're going to be able to find the spinner rack. And so today, without those things existing, I'm thinking kids don't even know what a comic book is,
By the way, a lot of this is growth past its ability to contain. The newsstands and the drugstores that used to have racks and spinners and things like that. Well, the market, imagine that guy having to spend time, who ordered for the store, whoever it may be, spending time with the previews. No, they're going to go Batman, Superman,
right.
Flash, and boom. And that's really basically when I think back to my last few years of dealing with just the local without even knowing where my first comic book store was. I remember thinking, oh yeah, there was a lot of books that weren't hitting that store. A lot. And Animal Man was one of them, because that goes back to that same era. My guy wasn't going to carry Animal Man. He didn't know who Animal Man was.
Right.
So he was carrying Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, All-Star Squadron, you name it. But that's it. He wasn't going to go through 3 hours of a pre-order.
Right. Like a casual 7-Eleven person that's ordering magazines and stuff, they're not going to go through that whole diamond catalog, hundreds and hundreds of pages. I really do think that what DC, Marvel, and the other company should have done is just pare down like 3 or 4 books, maybe 5 tops, and have those books tailored for that audience specifically. And then make those versions. Not that you can't sell them at comic shops. Don't make it exclusive. Make it that they can have those, but then have your entire line available at a comic shop. Because think about this. If you're a kid and you thought DC Comics just put out 5 books a month, right? And you're like, oh, and then you find out, like a kid, at school says, hey, there's a comic shop. And you're like, what's that? It's like they have hundreds and thousands of comic books. And like, oh, okay. You blackmail your mom, you beg her to take you to the store. They do. And then you walk in the door and then you just see thousands of new comics, right? And then you see that DC didn't just publish those 5. They have 100 books. You know what I mean? So then it gives those comic shops still an exclusive kind of feel, right? That's the collectible market, right? And then there's this more like mainstream market that's tailored just for gateway casuals to come in and read the book. And then if they want more, then they could either just go back the next month and keep reading those adventures, or if eventually they find out that these comic shops exist. And then I still think, we've talked about it on the show as well, and then we should get to the ICB, is that digital, I think it was Todd that was saying that some of the books that don't make sense as far as floppies and the expense of making a physical copy of a book. So let's say like it sells 10,000 on, on the rack. So you can't make ends meet on 10,000. But guess what? If you could move 10,000 digital copies, financially, that makes a crap ton of sense, right? So then you could actually think about the marketplace with all those three ideas. Bring people in, as like Joe said, hell, just write it off on your taxes as marketing. As far as the the spinner rack idea, the more mainstream idea. Just write it off as marketing, write it off as business, as a loss or whatever for marketing. And then, funnel that into comic book shops. And then, you have your digital as well, through your websites and stuff like that. And so I think between the three, it's still basically the same product, but you're giving people three different options and three different ways that you can sell and market the product, the book. Which I think makes a lot of sense. But to me, we're not hearing any of this kind of talk from anybody.
No, and you know what? The one thing that the last vestige of the neighborhood spinner rack, by the way, was still Archie in the grocery stores and stuff.
The digest, yeah, they had
at the checkout. Yep.
And then even Disney had the Disney Adventures or whatever with little mini comics. Yeah.
So there's obviously some information that can be gleaned from that, as far as you eventually went onto that model, and even changed your whole line. So I don't think Archie looks anything like it used to. They've gone kind of more mainstream look and stuff like that. But man, that material, they have more material. They could reprint material for the rest of their lives.
And they were in those digests. They were reprinting stuff. And there's been speculation that even this industry, if they wanted to, they could just be like reprint material from 30, 40 years ago and bring that back and then just keep it going for the next.
Obviously, the one big thing about all of that, of doing that, and because we're watching the industry shrink, it could actually shrink backwards and maybe do this. But the one big thing is price point. If you don't handle your price point, and maybe you still want the $5.99, but you better give 100 pages for $5.99 if you think you can go back into the newsstands and things like that, or wherever, Walmart. You see it, you saw it. You're not going to give 20 pages away for $5.99 at a Walmart, because that's not going to interest that kind of customer. But you give a kid hours worth of entertainment that he goes home and like. My mom bought it for me. I get an hour break because he'll read 80 pages of Flash.
Right.
I'll do that. That's worth $5.99. But 20 pages, it's not going to be it.
Well, even digest, like if you wanted to take on the manga, model where you do it in black and white. So you just do a digest, or what do they call those? The bundle books, like the big thick books. You can put those out and charge next to nothing, because one, the work's already paid for, and two, the production costs. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, just put those out, for a couple bucks. It's already paid for. The printing, if it's black and white, goes down considerably, and you print it on newsprint. So it's just kind of
newsprint. By the way, this is newsprint. This is just something that came out this year. But guess what price they're asking for this?
$19, $15, $19.
$39.99.
Are you kidding?
Nope.
Excuse me.
$39.99.
Oh, excuse me. Oh,
Todd, you bought that book for $40?
No, but this is the work of Mike Barron is in here. Mike Barron and Mesner Lobes.
That was a good run.
Yeah, it was sent to me. It's signed.
Here we go. I actually was I smiled there too. So yeah, this is a no smile stream. So I'm trying really hard, you guys. This is really going against my. Oh, that's cool. You got it signed.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
You know whose work is in here? Just by chance. I've always said my top favorite influence, Butch Geis. That's his work.
Very good. Very good. So you want to, you said the best for last. You want to get into it, Todd?
Sure. I don't have it pulled up. Joe has it, right? Is he going to do his normal routine of reading?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if Joe and I even know about this. I think you brought it to the table here.
Well, there's two that we could go with. I wasn't sure which one you were referring to. Did you mean the ICV2 Comicron sales report, or the superheroes may have finally met their kryptonite article?
Yes.
Okay.
Because, and the reason why I think it's a good topic is because whenever you say, oh, the comic industry is dying, they love to go after the graphic novel reports of, oh, but we did 1.2 billion in graphic novels and
Right.
books. But go a little deeper and they'll tell you it's kids buying stuff that got put into that same chart, right? That same pie. It's kid stuff. And there is very, very little DC stuff in there. They just started doing this 2018. So it's full of stuff, but not who you think it's, part of.
Is this the same one that they did a while ago where they were bringing in crowdfunding books into their overall?
No, there's no crowdfunding in these numbers.
This one references the report where they pulled in crowdfunding and manga and Scholastic in order to claim that there was this big jump in sales numbers. So I sent you the link, Art, in the private chat if you want to display it.
I don't see it yet. Which one? The one on in
StreamYard chat?
Okay, let's see if I can get this to work. Okay. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Everyone in the YouTube chat, thank you very much for not smiling, laughing, or having any fun at all. We appreciate you being very serious on this very serious stream.
Yeah, this is the somber stream. I'm never gonna smile again. I almost smiled. I can't help myself. All right, so screen share. Todd, you're gonna have to do some heavy lifting because I did not read this article before. So is this it right here? The ICV2?
Yep. Yeah, okay. The one with that chart.
That's the one.
Superhero comics may have finally met their kryptonite by Rob Skalkowicz.
Skalkowicz, yeah.
Skalkowicz.
And so the gist of the article is that the shift away from single issues to graphic novels and trades, not only in comic shops and bookstores, but through Scholastic specifically. And the conclusion that this writer came to is that this signals that superheroes have been declining in popularity. And he gives a couple of links to, there's a link to a different article that he wrote. And then there was an article on the ICV2 Pro site, which he links to as well. But if we scroll down to where it says the loyalty loop collapses.
Okay.
He's arguing that this conclusion he came to was not only correct, but that it's overdue. And he says that superheroes rose to dominance in the 60s and 70s when comics were cheap and there was relatively less competition for kids' attention. And then he says in the 70s and 80s, a new generation of storytellers created more complex stories with older themes geared towards older readers, more advanced artistic storytelling techniques, etc. But you still had fans buying piles and piles of single issues. So then he goes, if we go to the last paragraph under that loyalty loop heading.
The DC Marvel?
Yeah. So he says that DC and Marvel wasted the better part of 2 decades between 2000 and 2020 failing to react to the changes of people having other choices for their entertainment. And so he's saying that the comic book industry did not continue to evolve the medium in order to compete with these other forms of entertainment, like big budget movies and TV and video games, etc.
So is he still thinking that the superhero as a genre was the reason why there was the lack of interest?
He doesn't he hint to a little bit of confusion because you're going to the movie and then you
Yes.
go to the store and it's not the two don't meet. There's a
That's
disconnect.
that's why I was a little confused here because we're talking about 2000 2020. Yeah. So go ahead.
He alludes to that there's a definite disconnect from what kids see in a movie, then go to the comic book store, and it's where's that guy? Where's this guy? How come Captain America looks like this guy? You know, and it's he definitely goes into well, I mean he definitely beats around the bush about it, but he alludes to it.
Yeah, and there's two, I think, competing concepts, and I don't see him reconcile them. One is that you've got the obvious film numbers, which show superhero movies started getting really big in the early 2000s and continued to get big all the way until 2011 when the first Avengers film came out. And then they just exploded. And with that film, you started getting the $1 billion box office potential of superhero movies. And then over the next 10 years, we saw that you could go from a $1 billion super blockbuster in the sense of Avengers or Avengers Age of Ultron, where you have a story arc that's concluding with one of these Avengers films.
Right.
Then after the second Avengers film, you start seeing single Marvel films that clear $1 billion. A film like Black Panther, for example. So the sales kept going up and up as years went by. So it's not like people stopped being interested in superheroes at the box office.
Mm-hmm.
The interest was obviously there. Yet in this article, he argues that because kids trade paperbacks or hardbacks like the Raina Telgemeier books or Captain Underpants and Dogman and those titles, they have huge success through Scholastic and decent success in bookstores the last time I checked. So he's arguing that because graphic novels, trades, and these books geared towards very young readers in elementary school increased dramatically in their sales, while in the direct market, single issues dropped quite a bit in 2017, came up marginally in 2018, and then he says that an 11% increase is a booming increase in 2019. But what he's saying is that single issues were not the bulk of that increased sales margin.
Okay. So there isn't a real conclusion to like his superhero thing. Like it's just
Well,
kind of,
I don't know if it's in another article or that's related to this, but here's one of the conclusions that is related to this article that I came across, and it was they talked to a store owner, and a store owner who's been open, and what he said was the people coming into my store all of a sudden are now kids whose parents still have jobs. They're coming in here to get them something that keeps them entertained and something to do, where he said my customer was the bartender, this guy, that guy that right now is out of work and he's not coming back. That's what he found in the last 30 days was parents who have jobs who are getting paid. They're bringing their kids in because there's right now, what is there to do for them? They're not going back to school, so we're getting them some entertainment. So they're bringing kids back in a store, and it's hard for them to give them, like, we don't have what we could give them. We didn't expect this, because that stuff, the Scholastic stuff's in a Barnes and Noble and things like that. The things that are for them could be there. So all of a sudden you got this influx of kids and no product for them.
Right.
And that's a related article, but I don't believe it's in this one.
That's crazy. So then he goes on to the trade collection, runs dry. We already knew this. Do you want to keep going there, Joe?
Sure. So when he says that the trade collection runs dry, he comes to what is his... Okay, so as the supply of quality materials started to dry up, fewer new storylines measured up to quote-unquote must-read status. Even less so because constant reboots of the story universes left a lot of material outside of current continuity and therefore irrelevant to exactly the most dedicated, habitual readers that superhero publishers need. And I'll add the point, I think I mentioned this earlier in the conversation, that it's those most dedicated, habitual readers that also have the most spending power.
Yes.
Which stores need in order to survive.
And also those are the ones that are being betrayed by agenda, driven comic books.
Right. And then his next point in the following paragraph is that the big success of superhero films didn't necessarily translate to the sales of ongoing comic book titles, even in cases where the publishers actually tried to align a story in a comic title to what was happening with the films.
Right. Yeah. I don't think kids know what comics are.
A lot of them, and it's a point that's brought up here in this article, and it's also been brought up in the chat, is that a lot of kids do know what manga is, and they have no idea that manga is simply the Japanese word for comic book. And they like what they see when it comes to manga, and they can see anime that is tied to the manga titles that they like. Yet if they go to, let's say they're at the bookstore and they see the manga bookcase, and then they look and next to it is the American comics. If they picked up a Batman book or a Spider-Man book, nothing that they're reading there would reflect what was happening in the movie theater last month.
Right. There's a complete disconnect. Yes.
So then if we go down into the end of the article where it says the long twilight, that heading, essentially we're skipping past some of his arguments as to why the industry did not properly steward the medium by training up the next couple generations of readers. And what he's saying is that titles like Dogman, Captain Underpants, some of the other kids stuff that's available exclusively through Scholastic, they have been around long enough that they're training up readers. And manga has certainly been around long enough to train up readers. So his conclusion is more or less that in the final paragraph, DC and Marvel have both gotten into the young reader market with substantial investment there and an attention. He's saying it might be a case of better late than never. And he says that DC has been investing in a strong reader program since 2018. And Marvel recently cut a deal with Scholastic that will allow them to publish stuff and get it into the hands of kids who are not going to comic shops because they have no idea what a comic shop is. Or
right.
If they did know what it was, probably would have no interest in going there.
Yeah, that's the thing is like also, God, what was it? Was it during the New 52 where DC, and I've heard Marvel say the same thing, like kids don't read comics. So instead of trying to get kids, like, I don't know, like these places have marketing and advertising people. I just don't know what they do for their money, because it was when if somebody came to me and said the demographics, kids aren't buying comics anymore, superhero comics, I would think, oh my gosh, we have completely failed, right? Because who's gonna be interested in Batman or a character named Spider-Man, right? That's gonna be a younger kid. I mean, it's okay if you grow up and you still like those things. That's fine. I mean, obviously we do. But that's who these things were always designed and built for. It's in the concept. It's in the idea. The DNA was always meant to be for younger kids. So the thing is, when you start as a company, as a business that makes superhero comics, DC and Marvel, and you start saying, we're just going to make comic books for adults, right? We're going to make more adult comic books. And I don't mean like what is it, Vertigo, stuff like that. I mean like their superhero line of books. They're going to make more adult. I'm thinking you're completely missing the mark. The adults that like comic books like comic books. As an adult, I never went, I need my comics more mature. I never thought that. I just want a great action adventure story. That's it. I just want to get lost in the story. And if I wanted something more adult, there was Vertigo. And then like both DC and Marvel, like Marvel had the Epic line, which was an amazing line of books. Like they did some great stuff. And then DC had Vertigo. And then they had their I don't think it was a line per se, but most of the deluxe format books, when they called them deluxe format, now they just call them graphic novels. But when they did deluxe format book, almost every time you saw a square bound book, you knew it was more adult, right? So floppies were always for kids.
Right.
So the format was completely different. And also the sticker price was higher for those graphic novels or deluxe format books than the floppies. So they were already marketing more towards adults. And even the price reflected that, like the lower price for the kids, the higher price for the adult. And then the product completely changes. One's more adult, one's more for kids. And the thing is, they just try to homogenize everything into one idea. Like when DC canceled Mad Magazine, I know I'm singling out DC, but I know that mostly because I was there during a lot of this stuff, but I know Marvel's shenanigans as well. But they were, they were consolidating. Like, oh, Mad Magazine's going to go away. Oh, Vertigo is going to go away. We're gonna bring those characters into the DC universe. Oh, isn't this going to be great? Now the Watchmen, they're bringing that. Like all these things, they don't fit. They don't fit thematically. If you want to do elsewhere world stories or more adult stories, then keep those separate, but keep that kid line going. Or just, you don't even have to call it a kid line, because like we've talked on Pontificators, you don't want to do that because then it sounds insulting to the kids. Guess what, you guys? This is a glorious day. See this right here? We can all do this again. You know why? Because my wife just brought in a big old stack of these.
Wow.
Nice.
Yes. So all the Chrono books are in, you guys. We just got thousands of them.
Wow.
Yeah, so I saw the truck downstairs, but I didn't want to say anything, and I was hoping my wife would bring up the book. So yeah, these are going to be shipping soon, you guys. Wait, that one's upside down. What the heck?
Those are purty.
These are pretty books. So yeah, we can smile again. Comics are fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, and then
I promise to give your thought serious consideration, Art.
Which thought is that? Oh, the smiling.
We can smile because comics are fun again. I promise I will give it serious thought.
Consideration. Okay. Yeah. But this is the book, you guys. These things are going to start shipping soon.
Looks great.
We got boxes of Chrono Mechanics Retrofit. Look at that. Here we go.
Nice.
It feels really good too. It's kind of like that satin finish. So it doesn't really reflect, but it still feels kind of like that slick, like plastic coating on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's cool, man. It's a great day. It's a great day for comics. All right.
Woo!
All right. Joe, come on.
Yes.
Come on. Come on. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. We can't break Joe. Yeah, so then what was the gist of the article? It was pretty much that what, cells are down, and that
his argument was pretty much that DC and Marvel should have been courting a younger audience a long time ago, minimum 10 years ago.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yep, I agree.
So on that point, Todd and I definitely agree. His conclusion that superheroes have lost their luster, I still say no. The film box office receipts tell me otherwise. If you look at in certain areas of the toy market, they're making money hand over fist. You look at superhero video games that are well made, blockbusters, one after another after another. One of the biggest games of last year was the Sony Spider-Man game for the PS4. So the desire for superhero content has not gone away, and I don't believe it will go away. It's just a question of, can you deliver good storytelling in a format that people want to receive it?
And the thing is, marketing. I'm telling you right now, like, you start telling somebody, this is the coolest shit since sliced bread. This is so much fun. Action, adventure, sci-fi, humor, time travel story, completely unique. You'll never read anything like it. And just start getting into that kind of excitement. Comics need Stan Lee. Well, we have Comicsgate. Like, Comicsgate is like the closest thing to Stan Lee that this industry's had in years. But Stan was always like, always, comics are cool. Buy these books. They're so much fun. All this stuff. And you know what? I knew we were doomed. This was probably 15. It was probably 20. You know what? It was at least 20 years ago, maybe even longer. And it's when like comics started getting into the mainstream, kind of like with the Kevin Smith stuff, and they started becoming like, ooh, comics are getting on the radar of entertainment, like entertainment programs, entertainment magazines, movies, things like that. And it was Entertainment Weekly, and they did an article. And this is why. I heard people talk like this. I heard Joe Quesada talk like this, and I heard Mark Waid talk like this, and I absolutely hated it, because these guys actually, when people wanted interviews with comic book professionals, they went to these guys. Kevin Smith was always enthusiastic. Like, Kevin Smith, I'm not 100% like, ooh, Kevin Smith is amazing, but at least he always had insight on the industry, and he was enthusiastic. But I do remember like reading interviews with Joe Quesada and Mark Waid, and Mark Waid specifically in an Entertainment Weekly article in their magazine. And it said something about, he was referring to superheroes as tights and capes, derogatory term, right? Tights and capes. And then he referred to the audience as basement dwellers, living in their mother's basement reading these books. It's your fan base. I'm not saying that there isn't somebody reading a comic book in a basement. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that. But why would you talk in a derogatory manner to your fan base? Why do you do that? Like, I always say I always use the rock and roll business model. Like, thank you, good night. They're always so thankful. Even like AC/DC, they're like, sometimes like some of these metal bands will even say, God bless at the end of the set. You know what I mean? Like, they'll actually thank you for coming out. You know, you could have chose anybody to go see, but you chose us. Thanks for helping our record get #1 on Billboard. You know, whatever. These guys always acknowledge the fan base. Always, always, always. R&B, those guys are so good at it. Like, thank you, God. Thank you, you know, our buyers, you know, our supporters. But you know what? Comics has always had like some kind of contempt for the fan base.
That's what I don't get. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
You didn't learn anything from Trekkies that were doctors and lawyers and scientists. You didn't learn the idea that just because somebody reads something nerdy doesn't mean that they're not an educated nerd who makes a lot of money. Don't be a dumbass. That's so stupid. You know what I think? Comics are an industry stuck in formulas. And what they don't realize is, hey, I would still buy comics, but I want my story to come out one shot, boom. I don't care how much it costs, how big it is, how thick it is. I'm not going to do the 12-month thing to wait for a storyline like Joe Quesada and Kevin Smith. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to do that. So if you still wanted to cater to me, you'd figure that out. Then you'd go, hey, let's do shorter stories like we did in the 80s with Spider-Man. Each week or each month, he was fighting a different villain. See if the kids will do that. See if they'll like it. But if you're stuck in such a formula that you don't want to get out of it, you're doomed to repeat yourself and head down this path. There's no course correct unless you try. Okay, I've been saying this for 2-3 weeks now.
And they're not trying.
Correct. If you don't actually try,
right? And they're not trying. This is why this industry doesn't think about the industry. It's always so short term. So I understood why Joe Quesada said these things. I understand why Mark Webb says these things, because they want to be cool, right? They want to acknowledge, like they're saying, these are silly. These are silly, right? Because they're trying to like acknowledge that to the cool kids, right? Like, how do you get to the cool kids? You know, it's like, oh, you know what? Those nerds over there, they're not so cool. You know, I'm not a nerd. I'm cool, right? So that's kind of what they're doing. So it's the same fundamental like schoolyard crap that we grew up with, right? You don't acknowledge how cool comics are. You don't do whatever because you're going to get beat up. Because if you want the cool kids to like you, you don't mention that. Things have changed a little bit, but these guys still have the same mindset. And I do remember this was a couple years back when San Diego Comic-Con became the media Hollywood like premiere like red carpet bullshit that it's become. And God, I wish I could remember her name. It was a DC editor. I worked with her, Jeanette. I can't remember her name. Assailan, maybe. And she went on and she went public on all her social media. And she said, listen, you guys, when like NBC News or these news outlets go up to you at the Comic-Con, just know they're setting you up to mock you. Just know that they are not going to put you in the best of light, because that's usually what they do. I mean, now they're kind of like being a little bit more kinder, but this was probably 10 years ago when, you know, that boom stuff started to happen with the Marvel movies and all the Hollywood, you know, hoopla with comics. And so she was telling people that were comic book fans that were going to this show, she was warning them, most likely they're going to humiliate you on the news. And I noticed that there's this weird, like, self-defacing aspects to comic books. Like fans, like I remember there was a Mad magazine cover, and it made fun of, like, the fan base. I forget the cover. This was years ago. And I thought, this is like, I know it's Mad and it's parody and it's all those things, but still, I don't think that we should do that. I don't think we should demean in any way the people that are supporting our books. I think we need to be proud of what we do and find it the most interesting thing and never talk it down. And then our enthusiasm and our, like, if you just talk unabashedly about your excitement, right? A lot of times it's infectious. It's infectious, and people will latch on to that. And I think that that's been missing for a long, long time. I think there was, like I said, Stan Lee, and then there was the Image Comics Day. You had Todd McFarlane, you had Rob Liefeld, you had all those guys like this is rock and roll, baby. This is, like they were all like in your face, like this is the coolest thing in the world. And now we have Comicsgate, and Comicsgate is saying the same damn thing, which is the best thing that you can say. And for the life of me, I never quite understood that part of it. Even if that's how you feel, oh, tights and capes, or you're trying to look cool, curb it, man, especially to the mainstream, because you're the liaison. You're the one we're all relying on to be the voice to the normies. You're the one that is the caretaker of our industry. We're relying on, like, if anybody has mainstream access and Entertainment Weekly is going to think enough of you to interview you, please don't throw us under the bus, man. Don't do that, because it's not good. And all it's doing is fueling their fire. And I do believe with this next phase of the Marvel Universe films, I think they're going to start actively, not overtly showing contempt, but I think they've already kind of started waning off of the comic book thing. Like, because early on, the first wave, they had the comic book brain trust, right? So they brought all the comic book people in, and they were very, very public about it. Look at these guys, like all the behind the scenes things that would come with the movies. You'd see, it's like, oh, there's Joe Quesada, there's Tom Brevoort, there's Michael Bendis, there's Mark Millar or Miller, there's all these guys coming in. And so, and also the flipping of the pages, the comic book pages at the beginning, so they were definitely showing like, hey, we're proud of comic books. And then if you look at, as the phases go, the comic book stuff is less and less and less. The comic book brain trust, when they went into phase 2, they were let go, and all of this other stuff. So I think they all look at it as like, they're all like these people that we could exploit, that we can speak ill of. And sometimes it's the industry itself that's doing it. And that, I think if that changed overall, I think you'd see a change. I'm going to read this from Alfred McKay, and then you guys can chime in. Thank you so much for the $1.99. I do appreciate it. Super stickers, always welcome. Thank you so much, man. So what do you guys think of that?
I can tell you one thing I'm sick of is dark and edgy. Dark and edgy's been played to the freak. I mean, come on. Look at those shows, right? You had 4 shows at once: Punisher, Luke Cage, Iron Fist. Oh, you even had Defenders and Daredevil. All of them dark and edgy. Only 2 of them were superheroes who wanted to be superheroes. Everyone else wanted just to be who they were, and the superhero was second. So they weren't even treated like superheroes. Now, why does a show like Flash work? And of course, a show that isn't for me, I don't really like, Legends. Why does it work? Because it's light. It's light. It's not dark and edgy. They're playing to the fan base, and it wouldn't. You're going to say, well, it's a garbage show. Okay, it might be a garbage show, but whatever, it has its audience, and now they're on season 5 of one. And I can't believe it, Legends, and season 6 of the other. So you know what? For some reason, it's working. But it also, I don't mind it for entertainment, because it's not dark and edgy and drug-addled and sex-addled, and it just, this kind of stuff does not work in superheroes, and they don't get it. It works sometimes.
It's not adult oriented. As soon as you scrutinize things in a real world setting like that, it all completely falls apart. It's funny because Hollywood didn't do comic book movies in the past, but they did better comic book movies. Like if you look at Star Wars, like the original trilogy, the George Lucas, you look at Indiana Jones, you look at something like Big Trouble Little China, you look at like those movies. There's a whole bunch of them. They understood, like, this is comic books. This is what comic book is. So they had the sensibilities, and they didn't overly play it up in a realistic way. The universe that they created was a little far-fetched, but they never made an apology for it, which they do currently. Like, they just made things matter of fact. Like, accept this. The actors accept this. This is not lunacy. This is not crazy. They totally buy into it. You know, like, oh, this monster hanging out in China, completely, you know, feasible. Oh, the whatever levels of hell in Big Trouble in Little China. Oh, it's totally, you know, like, oh, Lopan. You know, it's all just like, you know, we all buy into it. The actors buy into it. The concept buys into it. So then the audience buys into it. As long as you keep it moving and it's fun, nobody scrutinizes it to that degree. As long as the universe works within itself, it's going to be fine. Hollywood kind of understood those sensibilities. But now, with irony being what it is, and sarcasm and all these things, it's almost like these ideas always have to have like a wink. You know what I mean? Like they always have to let the audience know, like, oh, he's in tights and capes. Do you remember, like, even the first X-Men, didn't Wolverine, like they were in the outfit in the movie, and he goes, "What's the stupid outfits or whatever?"
Yeah.
He even makes reference to that it's dumb, you know, and so that's Hollywood trying to get out in front of it and saying, yeah, we know it's dumb, but we want you to go along, you know, on the ride anyway. We have a character that acknowledges how stupid it is. So then we get that out of the way. Now we can move forward. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like, if you look at Joss Whedon's writing, it's all about that. Like he'll kind of get it out of the way. He'll go, isn't this stupid or isn't this silly? And then, you know, they'll move forward with the adventure. And I just think, like, we just got to get past that. Just get past that whole, like, we have to hold up some kind of like magnifying glass to these concepts so that they can somehow try to feel like they're legitimizing it, when it's like you said, Todd, it should just be the opposite. Make that world work within itself, the confines of it. Make it fun, make it fast-paced, make it action-oriented. I don't really want to know, like, the do's and don'ts of Bruce Banner. When I was a kid, all I wanted to know is that somebody's going to piss off Bruce, and he's going to turn into the Hulk, and I was going to see some cool shit happen. You know what I mean? Like, that's all I wanted.
A good example of that, by the way, is you took Spider-Man, Parker, and you put him into Miles Morales' universe. And granted, you took some heat for it, but nobody panned the movie and said that was a garbage movie. They just didn't understand why you did that. But everyone went and saw the movie. Everyone loves him as Spider-Man. Everyone loved the movie. Even though you did something really weird and took Peter Parker and gave him Miles Morales' friends and stuff like that, and gave him basically his universe, except for the maternal and paternal figures.
Yeah, and it worked for the most part. Yeah, I like this Three Stooges. Yeah, I think the Three Stooges are absolutely genius because everything's matter of fact. Like, they never let you in on the joke. Like, that world to those three guys is absolutely serious. When somebody gets hit in the head with a ball-peen hammer, they don't laugh. You know what I mean? Like, it's played straight, and that's the genius of it. And I think that kind of sensibility can still work without the wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like, oh, isn't this silly? Somebody got hit in the head with a hammer. Like, just don't draw attention to it. Just have the guy get hit in the head with a hammer and move on, you know? I'm sorry, Todd. I was kind of like going off on. Like,
no. You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah, but yeah. I think Hollywood can do it. I think there are people that are well equipped that can bring. Okay. Case in point, the first Guardians of the Galaxy, like that kind of. You didn't like it?
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, I think
did not expect. It was so unexpected.
Right, but I think they kind of got back into that kind of like, oh yeah, this is really silly and over the top. But there was never any wink, wink, nudge, nudge, even from the character that was from our world. You know what I mean? Like he was never like, he got in over his head and things got crazy, and he was like, holy shit, you know, this situation is crazy. But it was never like in an ironic way or in a cynical way, or any of that kind of, you know.
Seeing a tree guy didn't, you know, there wasn't that, oh, is this guy made out of wood? No, it didn't do that. It all, you know what? You bought into it. Boom. We're in this world. Accept it. We're here. And don't make, and they didn't make fun of it. And you got all kinds of crazy looking people, all kinds of crazy looking characters. We saw people I would never have expected to be on screen in a movie. and they played it like Collector and stuff like that. All that stuff, all played perfectly well.
Yeah.
I didn't ever go, I don't believe it. Never. Because I get you're not going to give me the exact costume, and I get it's not going to be spandex. I get all that. I know that already. It's going to be mostly leather and metal and this and that. So I'm already there. I'm with you. I know you can't do those things. So just go forward and keep going. Don't ever play into the silliness of it, because it's not silly. We take this stuff seriously.
And if you do, as the filmmaker, this is it. This is the word. There's a level of sincerity that comes across that people buy into. When you see, what's his name in Big Trouble Little China, the actor,
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell. Holy shit, that dude is that guy. You know what I mean? Like, it's not ironic. It's nothing. Like, that guy is hook, line, sinker, that person. He's completely committed to it. Even there's a scene in it where he can't see, he's blinded. And then his friend, his sidekick goes, bend over. There's a puddle of water. And he splashes water in his eyes. He goes, oh, yeah, that's better. It's dirty alley water. Like, how would this ever be better, right? But they sell it, man. It's so, like, weird and over the top. But to me, it works completely. And I would just like to see some of these ideas just kind of bring the fun back to it, where it's like no apologies. We're not going to, like, ironically say, isn't this silly? It's just going to be, we're going to present it. Everybody is going to buy into it. All the actors, the directors, everybody is going to be 100%. Star Wars, that first Star Wars, everybody was completely sincere. You hear those actors talk, they were like, I had no idea what a freaking Wookiee was. This was the stupidest, weirdest thing in the world. Like, all the behind the scenes stuff, right? This isn't going to work. They were all like, this is crazy. But as actors and doing what they were asked to do and what they were paid to do, they were completely sincere. Like, they bought into that world, even though they didn't clearly understand it. They didn't know, but they brought it. And that sincerity translates through the entire film. And I think that's why those things work. And I do believe even like modern sensibilities in comic books, there almost is like too much of like, oh, can you believe this? This is kind of stupid, right? You know? And I just think that that's also probably what's tending to make people not like it. That, and then just the creators and the people that are working on these books kind of having contempt for them.
Well, and this is something I pointed out the other day about how the destruction is happening also from within. Granted, it's not, by the way, we have some knuckleheaded artists who say silly things and attack their friends, but the toxicity from the industry is the writers and the editors. It's not the international talent that you went out and got out there committing all kinds of atrocities on their social media. They're not the ones causing the trouble.
Yeah,
it's the editors like Jim Chadwick and the writers. They're very toxic and they're killing you from within.
With agenda.
Agenda and indoctrination comics.
Yeah, and the weird thing is like I pursued comics at great cost, financially and everything in the early days. I did it because I was sincere and I really loved comic books and I wanted to make good comic books. I don't quite understand why some of these people are even in the industry. You know what I mean? Like, did you get in the industry to create agenda and to sell like politics, or did you get into comic books to entertain people in a very fun action adventure way? Like, what is it? You know, and then they go, well, could it be both? At times, yes, but not when it's all so one-sided. You know, like, it's not even like they're doing, a Denny O'Neil, what was it? Hard Traveled Heroes or whatever, the Green Lantern, Green Arrow stuff. Yeah. That was a series. That was a line of books that was set up to do something specific. But all of his books weren't that way, Yeah.
Yeah, You might have gotten into comics for fun and games art, but I got into comics to see conversations of people at restaurants and in libraries and at bus stops discussing the more serious subjects in life. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw somebody, I want to say his name. I think he's brilliant. He works over at Marvel, and he posted on Instagram the page. He inks his own work too, so it's this beautiful drawing, 6 panels of just that, like superheroes drinking coffee. And it wasn't even like the John Byrne analogy where, you have the Fantastic Four having morning breakfast, and then you have, the Human Torch keeping, like there's a scene where the coffee's cold. I'll heat it up. He's using his finger and he's heating the coffee cup up. And, you have like all of these kind of like, it's mundane situation, but they're also kind of using their superpowers. So it's kind of interesting in the way like, it is their normal, but it's a way that we can relate, but it's still very like Ben Grimm or very, Sue Storm or Reed Richards kind of thing. But this was it was very just sterile. It was just like, this could be any 5 people. It didn't have to be the X-Men. It could have been any 5 people on this page, talking about whatever it was, having coffee. And
but you're not saying that you don't show them because I remember the X-Men. I think they did this every single annual. By the way, they were either playing baseball or basketball or whatever. They started out every annual with some kind of thing like that. But it was like refreshing to see the people, your heroes, and your whatever. They're taking the time to say, what, we relax eventually. Our cases are done or whatever. We came back from the Shi'ar Empire, and so now we can relax a little bit, and then boom, and then the crap hits the fan, and we go again. But and that can be refreshing, but it's certainly not what you're getting at. Is like, oh, don't do that in comics. Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, if you were going to write the X-Men playing softball at a park, you have to have one of them use their powers at some point, right?
Right,
Which is what they did.
Yeah, that's the fun part of it. But what I'm saying is, like, they would write that scene where they don't use their powers at all. Like, it could be any 7 people playing baseball, or how is it 7? I think it's 7 people that are on the field at one time. 9. Thank you. And so you have 9 people playing just straight up baseball, but they're superheroes. They have these powers. They have these abilities. So it seems like, why would you even want to write it that way? I wouldn't. Like, I'm writing the X-Men. I'm going to take full advantage of the fact that these guys have powers, keep it fun, make it fun. And they are doing mundane things, but they're not doing mundane things the same way you and I would do them. Yeah. So you guys want to wrap this bad boy up?
Sure.
Yeah, I think if you guys are just going to insist that comics should be fun, there's no hope for me here. So we should just shut it down.
No smile. Not even Chrono Mechanics can bring a smile to my face. Yeah, it can. All right, you guys. Yeah, the Chrono Mechanics books are in. They will go into fulfillment very, very soon. So please come by. The Chrono Mechanics link is in the description, as is Florida Man. The Florida Man link is there as well. So Florida Man is in demand as Chrono Mechanics is. So, Joe, do you have a parting shot?
I hope everybody has a great day or great evening wherever you are. And please take our no fun approach into your lives. Spread it around to everybody you know and everyone you meet. Encourage them to frown when others smile, to grimace when others laugh, and to spread misery to the ends of the world, as some in the comic book industry have been teaching us that we should be doing. Thank you.
That was a good PSA. Thank you for that. So how about you, Todd?
You know what? I usually have something I always want to say as a parting shot, but I just want to say, you know what? Thank you to the people who backed Florida Man. Really, really, a non-superhero book in this climate doing that well. Very, very shocked, but very, very appreciative. I can't thank you enough for supporting, backing the engagement. That's, again, I started off the show with saying they don't get it. They don't understand it. They're not going to do it. They think, you know, cachet is my name alone, and I could just throw up something, and then, you know, you got to engage. And this is what we do. We provide entertainment. We do this weekly. There's been some really, really great shows. If you haven't seen them, if you're new to the Pontificators, there's been some awesome shows at the very beginning where we came up with ideas on how to help this industry. And guess where we are today? It's not better. It's far, far worse. And it hurts. I tell you, it hurts. You know, but I'm not looking back and going, oh, I'd go back and draw Spider-Man. I know that's not in the cards. So I'm okay with where I'm at and where I sit in the universe. But it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, because a lot of good things could have been happening all this time. But no, we get Riri Williams and we get this, we get that. And it's just sad.
Yeah, it is. But the thing is, I do believe that Comicsgate mission statement is being achieved. I do believe that being a answer to the mainstream and all. It's so funny. This little tangent is our mantra has always been we just want to create this little piece of the industry here. We want to bring our comic books directly to, you know, the chat, the people that, you know, supporting, and be left alone, and just quite frankly be left alone. And now I'm hearing from the other side, they're like, all we ever wanted to do is be left alone. You're the mainstream. You know, like you hear them using the same kind of thing. Like we're the aggressors, we're the ones attacking. Comicsgate are the ones that are attacking. We didn't attack anybody. The Pontificators that was in question with the Whisper 1 and 2 was like we were just kind of going over an article that was written, and then we just gave our 2 cents. That's it. There was no hate. It was just talking and just giving our take. Well, hate just that we love the industry and we see kind of what's happening to it, I think, but I don't hold any ill will towards anybody. Yeah.
Would any of this be happening if any one of those names on that Whisper Network call sheet were sales number 1, sales number 2, sales number 3, sales number 4, and they were writing innovative books that you're hearing about, going, the next movie that you're going to see, we're taking the material from that. If that was happening, no one would have a problem. But because you're mediocre, that's why you're tearing down the people in front of you. It's because you're mediocre. If you were tops, you wouldn't do this crap. And if you were any good, you wouldn't. If you were a competitor and you got out there and competed, you wouldn't do this crap. But you're doing it because you're not. You're mediocre comics. What's her name? Willow Wilson. How many times did you get a chance to start Captain Marvel? 5 freaking times. 5 times, 5 number 1s. It's because you suck. Sorry.
Yeah.
The 6th time will be the charm, Todd.
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be books that aren't done that well, but I think overall, I do think it's funny that the Whisper Networks and stuff are they're kind of using some of our mission statement for their own, you know, where they're saying, you know, like that they just want to be left alone. Well, how do you be left alone? You are the mainstream, you know,
right.
like it doesn't even make any sense. You know, and then they're like, well, Comicsgate, they're the aggressors. The Comicsgate came out of the fact that you were doing these things. So that was a rebuttal to those things. It wasn't the other way around. So I don't even know how these narratives can hold up. I know that they clearly lie, which is what we started the show with, but I don't know why anybody's even buying into it. And the only thing that's coming out of it is just complete and utter devastation and destruction. You see Comicsgate numbers going up. You see an industry being built here. An industry being built. Todd, you're working with letterers and colorists. You're giving them work. You're hiring them. They're getting paid. I'm doing the same. Every comics gator is doing the same thing. There is an infrastructure that is being built. People are making money. Jobs are being provided. This is the Marvel wasn't doing this. DC wasn't doing this, but we are. Look at the people that you're working with. They probably, were overlooked by the big two, but yet they're brilliant. You know what I mean? But they're getting work and they're getting paid well, and they're putting out comic books. So I think the only thing I see, and I'm going to leave it at this, is that the only growth that's coming out of the industry right now is in Comicsgate. I'm sincere when I say that. That's the only growth I see. I see other people in the Whisper networks and stuff. They're going to try to adapt to some of the mission statements and the ideas that we've built here. You're already seeing it, but I don't think it's going to succeed based on what Todd said early, that they just don't. They're not generous enough. Like, we're giving of our time. We're talking. We're hanging out. We're trying to entertain. They just think based on a name or based on a reputation or based on whatever it is that they can just put up a crowd fund and clean up. And maybe some can, but I don't think the majority of them are going to be able to. And even somebody like Sean Gordon Murphy, which people thought was going to do a lot better than he did. A lot of people thought that.
I did.
Yeah, not that he did bad, because he did not. But a lot of people were predicting. Even he was predicting. I think he was saying like 500,000 or something like that on one of his YouTube shows. So even he was thinking it was going to do better. So it's not as easy as it looks, people. So yeah, keep engaging. Don't talk down to your fan base, and keep doing great books. And like Joe will back me up. Never smile again. Never, ever smile.
And do it for remember, do it for the children.
Yeah, do it for the world. Make the world a better place. Do not smile. All right.